Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities, and identities. Welcome back to another glorious film review. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the night that may not be right. Yes, today's film review is none other than Nimona. So, what is Nimona about, you may be asking if you're someone who's never watched it. Well, Nimona is about a girl who can shapeshift. And essentially, she has this ability to be anything that she desires. Fish, sharks, alligators, giant hippos. You name it, she can be it. However, she's not the main focus straight away in this story. The focus in this story is a young man named Ballister. Ballister Boldheart, the knight who came from nothing, a young man who has strived and proved himself in the Knights' Academy that he will defend the realm of Glorith, so that the people may sleep safe at night from the outside beasts of the world beyond. But the question is, are there really any monsters beyond the wall? Or is it all some fabricated myth based on an accident that happened years ago? Well, that's what Ballister is about to find out, as he finds himself in a situation he would never have thought to come. Ballister is about to be knighted by the Queen of the Realm, a descendant of Glorith from down the road. However, during his knighting ceremony, it turns out that his sword has been switched with a sword that is a weapon. When he goes up to receive his knighting whilst handing over his sword, it turns out that something had clicked inside of the weapon and activated it, and makes it shoot at the Queen. Ballister naturally gets accused of murdering the Queen and gets his arm chopped off by a knight who essentially is his boyfriend. Well, not his current boyfriend, but it's a bit... Let's just get into that later. But essentially, Ballister loses an arm. What the... And so he goes off into the woods after running away from the kingdom, trying to fix his arm and replace it with a metal kind of substitute. However, when he gets to this castle where he starts to maneuver and pretty much put together his new metallic arm, Ballister finds himself in the most oddest of situations. A young girl seems to have appeared, believing him to be a villain. And she calls him the boss. "I'm not a villain," he calls out. And essentially, she looks over and goes, "Nice murder wall." And he goes, "That's not a murder wall." So, essentially, it turns out that this young girl, known as Nimona, as we find out throughout the plot of the story, has seen him on a televised screen after the assassination, and she takes this as her weapon. She sees it as a way to get back at Glorith for a mistake that happened a very, very long time ago. However, Ballister is proud to the teeth about his kingdom and the people he protects. He believes that people should be given the chance to explain themselves rather than be cast out. Now that's very important because this is where Nimona comes into it. It turns out in a flashback that we find out later in the story that Nimona once lived in what is now Glorith's kingdom. And essentially she was a young girl who went out and bumped into another young girl. This was during when she shapeshifted. Now, it's unclear whether the story that Nimona tells Boldheart is true, but if it is, it kind of indicates that Nimona wasn't always a shapeshifter. Essentially, the story we're told in the beginning, it was a young girl went to a well and chucked a coin in and wished that she could be anything she wants to be. Now, Nimona dismisses this as a joke on the train, but this very well could be true. And it turns out that this young girl, after being able to shapeshift, bumps into another girl known as Glorith. Glorith is a young girl from another village, from somewhere else, and essentially they become really good friends, play in the fields, have jokes. But all of a sudden, when she starts to show her shapeshifting powers, Glorith becomes very protective of herself and begins to feel threatened. This scares Nimona, finding herself in a situation she never thought she would be in. From that point on, Nimona and Glorith's relationship is shattered due to the hysteria of the people in the town, believing in witchcraft and monsters in the forest, and so they cast Nimona out and try to attack her. Nimona defends herself, but of course gets caught in the crossfire, and Glorith decides to stand up for her village, casting her out once and for all. This is why Nimona struggles to trust people. She believes that people are vain, narcissistic, and most importantly, she believes that their tolerance for what's different is just not good enough. And so to get back at the kingdom, she teams up with Ballister. However, after learning that Ballister is innocent, she does all she can to help prove his innocence to the rest of the kingdom. It turns out that Ballister's sword was switched by the director, and so the only way to get around it is they have to convince the kingdom that the director is the problem. However, they still have a problem. None of the knights believe him, and so they must come up with another plan after they find themselves in turmoil. The director gets put aside, yet the castle is still looking for Nimona, trying to hunt her down. Ballister does everything he can to pretty much stop them, but by the end of it, he's powerless to stop the giant mega weapon. The director tries to fire the giant mega weapon, but luckily Nimona manages to sacrifice herself, destroying the weapon in turn. Believing that Nimona is dead, Ballister finds himself with his boyfriend, Val, and the pair of them try to build a more accepting and unbiased society. They tear down the walls around the city, finally looking out beyond the reaches of their kingdom. This all happens after Ballister reminds himself of what Nimona once said. Maybe there aren't monsters out there in the world. Maybe everyone is just too afraid, and so they lock themselves away. So, what did I think of Nimona as a whole, as a film? I absolutely love this film. Why? It has the great vibe of heavy metal. It has the great vibe of just a killer-ass story. I also love the way that they twist it and turn it around, and the way that they take advantage of Nimona's shape-shifting powers so that she can manipulate and be Ballister, she can be the director, she can be pretty much anyone. I also love how she makes a really funny joke where she's like a little boy and she tries to lure this like gay cleaner who's pretty much like helping clean the knight armor, and she tries to lure him into a creepy alley, and then she scares the hell out of him when she jumps into a car. Hello, mister, I love my parents. Just those lines in general, and the way that Bella's just like, hold up, you're a girl, now you're a boy. I am today. So, what do I give Nimona out of 10? Honestly, this story is so brilliant. I also looked into the book because I didn't realise there was a book. It's just so hilarious, and for that reason I give it a solid 10 out of 10. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next film review. Until then, goodbye, stay beautiful, and have an incredible night.